Today I want to talk with you about MRI imaging and a baby's hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy injury, an HIE injury. I've talked about imaging in the past in some of my previous videos, but today I want to go a little bit more in depth from that medical legal standpoint and talk about MRI imaging and why MRI imaging is critical when we are helping families try to be able to understand what happened and what caused this injury. MRI imaging can go a long ways in helping us be able to time that injury. And usually the professionals who can read and interpret these types of imaging are pediatric neuroradiologists. You may have an initial radiologist that does a read at the hospital, but a pediatric neuroradiologist, they have a little bit more training specifically as it pertains to these images for babies. And so I want to get a little bit more in depth and talk with you about why that timing is important. Because essentially when we are doing a birth injury investigation for a family, what we're trying to figure out is, okay, what caused this injury? Did this happen during labor and delivery and it was caused by medical negligence, either on the part of the doctors and nurses of the hospital, or did this injury happen further up in time? Did it happen during pregnancy, or did it happen because of genetics and developmental issues? All of these types of issues we have to be able to understand when we are trying to help families understand what happened to their baby and why does their baby have this traumatic brain injury. So for MRI, like I said, that's the gold standard. And generally we're going to talk about T1 and T2 imaging. So when you are getting an MRI, and especially if this MRI is done less than 24 hours after your baby has suffered a traumatic brain injury, generally that what we will see in the HIE area is we want to see, is that MRI, is it normal? Is that going to be normal during that initial 24 hours time span? And then once we begin to get to maybe days 1 to 3, you may begin to see mild changes on the MRI. So when you be able to compare these imaging, if the images are being able to, if you're able to compare during days 1 to 3, you may be able to see some mild changes. Now, days 4 through 7, that is where you are normally going to begin to see some abnormalities be able to reveal themselves at that point in time. During days 4 through 7, you may begin to see abnormalities. And the reason why this is important is because this allows us to be able to, as I said earlier, time this injury, try to be able to figure out, did this happen during labor and delivery, and was this something that the doctors and the nurses caused? Now, like I said earlier, when I was talking in my other videos about, for example, when we're looking at ultrasound technology and using that to also help, generally, if you've got an older injury in time, let's say this injury happened during pregnancy, this injury happened way before labor and delivery, when we're beginning to look at the imaging, early on, you're going to probably start to see that injury already there. The injury is going to already be there because if it happened earlier in time, then it's had time to be able to develop and reveal itself. When we start seeing initial readings on these ultrasounds, and specifically that MRI, which I'm talking about today, and this is at that 24-hour window or less, if these readings or images are normal, then this goes a long ways in helping us to be able to understand the timing of the injury. When did the injury occur? And I'm not going to get into it today, but not only do you want to understand that timing, you also want to understand, what is the MRI pattern revealing to you? What do you see on the pattern? Do you see what areas or areas of the brain are injured? Do we have basal ganglia involvement, thalamus involvement, brainstem involvement? All of these types of things and more are very important when we are trying to do these birth injury investigations and help families understand not only the timing, when did the injury happen, but also, was this genetics or developmental, or was it medical negligence on the part of the doctors, the nurses, or the hospital? If you have more questions, maybe you watch this video today because your baby has suffered an HIE injury, and you have questions as to, well, just what I said, timing it, trying to understand when did this happen, what was the cause of the injury. If you have all of those types of things going on, what I invite you to do is go ahead and get your cell and give me a call. There's a telephone number down below on the screen. Get your cell, give me a call. When you talk with my office, make sure that you get on our calendar, pick a date and a time to talk with us. And remember, it costs you nothing initially to pick up your phone and talk with us about your baby story. Just make sure, like I said, that you give my secretary, to give them a date and time to get on our calendar so we can know when to call you back. In addition to that, make sure that you have a good working email address. That is critical because sometimes we have to reach out to you by email. So we need to have an email address that you check frequently. And finally, before I get out of here, I practice law here in the state of Maryland. I know from time to time that I have individuals who will contact us. They're in the United States, but they're not in Maryland. If that is you, you're not in Maryland, but you contact, understand that we have to use what we call co-counsel or local counsel. And that's something that we can look to help and work with you on. But I just want to make sure that you understand that co-counsel or local counsel aspect of things if you are not here in the state of Maryland. All right, that's going to be it for today's quick educational video. Again, I'm Marcus Boston, and I'm one of the childbirth injury and medical malpractice attorneys practicing law here in the state of Maryland at Boston Law Group, LLC. We'll talk with you next time. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.